as of right now, we are only a few days away from the launch of Black Ops Cold War. My guess would be starting on Friday, we're finally going to be able to watch some scrims to see what maps and modes they're playing, to finally be able to break it down. And by the way, in one of my previous videos, somebody asked, when will the maps and modes actually be released? Like, how do they know what maps they're playing and what modes they're playing on those maps? That's something that just develops over time. It's not like on launch day they say, okay, here are the rules for the CDL. A lot of these teams will just go through and they'll scrim a bunch of these maps and modes, see which one feels best. They'll talk with the league, then they'll go ahead and they'll decide as a whole. But back on topic here, today I wanted to break down each of these teams' main ARs. So last Monday, I put out my power rankings, my predictions video heading into this year's Call of Duty League. And I figured I wanted to go through, and in this one, we could talk about each player that's running the main AR for each of these teams. And then in later videos, we could also go through, talk about main SMG, so slaying SMG, maybe each team's flex, and go through each of them. So for today, you're going to be taking a peek at this graphic right here, where I'm going to put those that are good on the left, those that are a little bit better in the middle, and then the top tier, the absolute best main ARs on the right hand side. So I'm going to go ahead. This is just alphabetical order by team. So I'm starting at the left with Arcitys, and we're going all the way to the right over towards Methods with the Toronto Ultra. So let's go ahead. Let's start here with Arcitys. Obviously, we know that he was traded, or he wasn't traded, but he ended up being let go from his deal with the Chicago Huntsmen. He was now picked up by the Atlanta FaZe. So when we're thinking about Arcitys, obviously, when Modern Warfare made the switch to having two main ARs, that's when he really elevated his game and took his game to the next level. So him and Formal both on the same team, it really did allow them to win rotations and hold down lanes in rotations once they got there. But when it comes to Arcitys, he's one of those players that has all the intangibles for me. Obviously, he has incredible gun skill, but his communication is top notch, and the way that he's always keeping his calm and the way that he's able to communicate in the midst of battle is really awesome for Arcitys. So when it comes to him, I don't know if there's much better out there than Arcitys. We're going to put him in this best column, and then once we get some more people over there, we'll kind of rank them based on where they go. But I'm excited to see what happens with Arcitys this year. 2 years ago, he wasn't able to run main AR because Clayster did it on United. Last year, Formal was with Chicago. So this is a big standout year for him. Let's see where he ends up going there. Next on the list is going to be Formal. So everybody knows Formal. I feel like, I don't know, anything that I could say about Formal right here wouldn't really quite do him justice. I mean, he's been one of those solid organizational pieces for the last, I don't know, 7-8 years, right? It seems like if you're going to be starting a franchise, that's somebody that you would look to. Formal's kind of that person, or one of those people you would look to where, okay, we need a solid main AR to hold down the fort. Let's go get Formal. So again, I'm not quite sure where to put him. I think he's in this best category. And again, once we get everybody over there, then I'll kind of tell you where I think they belong based off of each category. So for now, let's move on. The next team alphabetically is the Dallas Empire, and we have Crimsix. Now, when it comes to Dallas, when I put them in power rankings in last Monday's video, I didn't quite have Dallas as high as I had some of these other teams. And I feel like where they're missing out is this main AR position. Now, I don't think Crim's one of the worst, but when I compare him to some of the people that are down there, remember, there are only 12 main ARs in the world in terms of being on a competitive roster, being on a starting competitive roster. So when you put it in that, is Crim one of the best 2 or 3 or 4 in the world? I just don't think he is. I don't think he's bad, but I don't think he matches up with some of the best, which is why I don't think Dallas is going to be quite as dominant this year as they were last year. I think if they would have stuck with Clay, that might have been a different story, but When it comes to Crim, I'm going to leave him right here in the middle of my screen, and then we can adjust based on that. Next team, alphabetically, is the Mutineers, so we have Skyz. And when it comes to Skyz, if you're just going off of recency bias and what Skyz did last year, no doubt about it, he's in that top third. He was absolutely phenomenal. He was the glue of that team, whether it was search and destroy or winning rotations in respawn or whatever. He was incredible. So I don't know if he's better than Arcitys and Formal. I don't know if you can say that based off of what he just did last year. But I'm going to put him in this best column, and we can go from there. If he has another year where he absolutely balls out, now all of a sudden we can feel confident in putting him in one of the best. But we'll leave him up there. And then from there, let's talk about Shawnee. So towards the end of the Modern Warfare season, London Royal Ravens decided this was the guy they wanted to move forward with. So they let go of Scraps, they let go of Wuskin, they let go of everybody else on their squad. And they said, okay, Shawnee, you're going to be our person. Let's see where we go from here. Now, outside of the last month or 6 weeks of the season, Shawnee was okay, but he wasn't tremendous. So because of that, I feel like we have a really small sample size when it comes to Shawnee. I think there is potential. I don't think there's any reason why he can't be somewhere in this range. But right now, I just don't feel super comfortable putting him there, just based off inexperience alone. If he proves himself and we make this same exact video halfway through the year, now we might have a different story on his hands. But for right now, I'm going to put him, I think that he's a really good player. I just don't know, again, if he's somebody that I say, okay, let's put you up there with Arcitys and Formal. I don't know if he's quite there yet, but he could get there. Next, we have Assault. So I don't know why I said Assault. That was weird. Next, we have Assault. He was with the Minnesota Rocker last year. He obviously transferred over, and now he is in that starting lineup for the Los Angeles Guerrillas. So when we think about Assault, we think about his numbers last year. I think that he was the most consistent player on that Minnesota Rocker roster. Obviously, the first 6 weeks, 2 months of the season, GodRx was an MVP caliber candidate. Then after the switch to online, there were pacing issues, and it just didn't work in terms of their team chemistry. So they ended up getting shuffled around and didn't really have a great end of the season last year. But Assault was pretty solid throughout the entirety of the year. Now, where does it put them in? Where does that put him specifically in the mix of these other top 12 ARs? I'm not sure that he's in that top echelon. For now, I'm going to put him right here between good and better, and we'll see where he fits, but I don't think he's up there in the same group as some of those others. Next, we have Accuracy from, again, he was with the New York Subliners, now he's on the Minnesota Rocker, and I think he could have a big year ahead of him. I really do. I think in terms of communication and knowledge of the game and overall COD IQ, I think he's a really good player. I'm willing, I think, and by the way, I mean, in the comments, if you disagree, you can put it down below, but I think that he's probably a little bit of a better player than Crim at this point in time. I'm not saying that, you know, all the intangibles are equal or one player might have all the better intangibles than the other. That's not how I feel. But if I was going to start a franchise today, I think I would take him over Crim. And I know that might sound crazy considering Crim has 3 rings and he's the undisputed GOAT and has the most championships of all time. But as of right now, I just don't see it. Next on the list, the one and only Clayster. So Clayster from the New York Subliners obviously was with Dallas last year. This is a tough one for me because if I'm starting a team, Clay is one of my top options just based off of he is that intangible guy. Yes, his skill is really good. He's nasty with an AR, but when it comes to communicating, when it comes to being the hype man, and when it comes to, you know, doing all of the things in the background that you need your superstar to do, Clayster checks all of the boxes. So when it comes to placing him amongst these guys, I'm going to put him right up here with Formal and Arcitys. I don't quite know where to put him amongst them. We'll decide it all in the end. But again, if I'm starting a roster, I feel great with starting with Arcitys. I feel great with starting with Formal. I feel great, even maybe a little bit more so if I'm starting with Clay, because he brings so many other things. Next, we have Slasher. So Slasher, formerly of Optic Gaming, now he has transitioned over to be part of that 100 Thieves roster. And this is, I'm not really sure about Slasher. So when Slasher is on his A game, for instance, the middle part of last year's Modern Warfare season, Slasher was dropping 1.5s, 1.4s, 1.6, match in, match out. He was the best person on OGLA. Towards the end of the year, he started to fall off just a little bit. All of a sudden, you start to see him in that 1.0, 1.1 KD category. But there's no doubt about it, especially going into a 4v4 Call of Duty with a longer time to kill, you could see him have an even more important presence on the map, having to win those gun battles to win rotations and secure search and destroy rounds and stuff like that. So, again, if I'm taking Slasher, I'm probably putting him maybe just on the same level as Skyz. For a second there, I wanted to put him a little bit ahead, but then I just kind of remembered what Skyz did throughout the entirety of last year. So I think both of these guys, Slasher and Skyz, I put above the rest of the field, but now you can see that this top end is starting to get it's pretty packed up here. So we'll see what's going on towards the end here. Next, and this is total speculation. We don't know if this is what's happening or not. I just want to preface by saying that, but as of right now, the rumor is that Scraps and Wuskins, the twins, might be going to Paris. And if that happens, that means that Wuskins would be the main AR for Paris Legion, so that's why I have him in here. If something changes, then we'll adjust as the season gets started. But when it comes to Wuskin, I thought this was the guy, Scraps and Wuskin. I thought those two should have been the two players that London built themselves around, and that's not the decision that they made. I thought it was a mistake. I think last year when I thought of London, I wanted them to do well because of the underdog story with the twins. They ended up letting go of it, which it is what it is. But this would be a big pickup for Paris if this is the route that they decide to go. And if they do that, I think Wuskins is better than some of these in the top in terms of what he brings, like with a sniper rifle and in search and destroy. But all around, when you're talking about hardpoint, and we're going to be playing control this year, I don't think I trust him quite as much as I would Skyz and Slasher. But with that said, I do think he's right in this range somewhere. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to put him in this same range right here with Crim, with accuracy, and we'll kind of decide where we go from there. But I think that this is a solid spot for him. Next, Octane. Oh boy, one of the most controversial figures in the Call of Duty League. I will tell you, based off skill, without a doubt, I think he's probably the best. Now, where I don't like what Octane brings to the table, I think he's kind of the exact opposite of Clay. I think Clay is always energizing his team. He's always upbeat. He's always lifting up his teammates. He's that difference maker for a franchise. Whereas by all means, Seattle got some bad beats last year, but as soon as they happened, Octane was off to Twitter whining and complaining and moaning, and I get it. Things didn't go his way. You can say whatever you want about competitive integrity, but that is a morale downer, right? If you're thinking about team morale overall and team chemistry, I mean, this year, just a few weeks ago, he tweeted that picture like wishing, I'm not putting words in his mouth, but it kind of seemed like he was wishing that he was on 100 Thieves, going back to 2 years ago with, what they were able to achieve then. So I think based on skill, if I'm drafting based off of skill, he's probably the best in the league. That's what I honestly feel. What he was able to do for the Seattle Surge last year, not really having all that much in terms of help from his teammates. I mean, he played phenomenally, but some of the other things can kind of take away from that. So I think what I'm going to do is I kind of like this a little bit more in a way. I think if you were to compare Clay and Octane, I think Octane's skill is a little bit higher. His ceiling's a little bit higher. But if I'm picking for a teammate, I want somebody like Clay. I want somebody that's going to come in, be the leader of my franchise, and just make everything happen from there. Last but not least, we have Zinni over here from the Toronto Ultra. When it comes to him, now, last year as a whole, he was kind of up, kind of down, right? He had really good tournaments. He had tournaments where he might not have played the best, and that goes for the Toronto franchise as a whole. I will say, down towards the latter half of the year, he played pretty well. They played pretty well overall, especially at their home series when they beat the Atlanta FaZe. That was a phenomenal, just an absolute, one of the best series of the year. So with that, I'm not sure I trust him overall to constantly win those big kills on rotations or to clutch up and win search and destroy rounds. But I don't think he's in the bottom half here. If I had to take methods, I'd probably put him right in this range. I think I'm still going to go ahead. I'm going to take Skyz. I'm going to take Slasher ahead of him, but he's still up there pretty good. So the issue here as we get towards the end is that you can see everybody's kind of bunched up towards the right. That's what happens when you only have 12 people in the entire world that are playing this position. So if I had to even them out, I don't really think that there's any bad ones. I don't think that's the case. I think if you were to take Shawnee and put him on your team, I think that you can probably win with him and you can probably take tournaments with him. So with that said, let's go ahead. Let's spread these guys out. I do think that maybe these are kind of equal here. I'd like to see a little bit more from Shawnee, but we'll put those two there. Crim, I don't want to put in this bottom category, but I'm just not sure I would take him. Maybe I'll switch him in accuracy here just a little bit. But Wuskins, I would take over both of those guys. Zinni's probably somewhere around here also. Then I feel the same about Skyz and Slasher. Both of them are just absolute beasts, and I feel like they can absolutely lead their teams to victories, which leads me with the last four, and I don't know, I've gone back and forth. I feel like with these four, I might even just go ahead and pull one of these right here. I might just put all four of them right here in the same line. I feel like you can win with all of them, so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take Formal, I'm going to take Arcitys, I'm going to take Octane, I'm going to take Clayster. I'm going to put them all right here in the same category. If I'm starting a franchise and I'm taking either of these guys, let's go. I feel like, not that they're interchangeable, but you can win with each of them. So maybe it's taking the easy way out. I don't know, but that's how I feel. Those four I feel like are in a little bit of a league of their own. Not that they're exponentially better, but they're a little bit better than the others. So with these rankings, in the comments down below, let me know how you feel. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Would you move some of these? Would you take Slasher up? Would you put Clay as number one? Would you move Octane down based off of his intangibles and some of the other stuff? Let me know in the comments below. If you're new around here, make sure you hit that subscribe button, leave a like. It helps out the channel. Thank you guys so much. We will see you in tomorrow's upload.